Okay. I know we're running out of time. I do have just a couple other questions, if you don't mind, and that is dealing with the Sheriff Norman. There was the issue regarding, well, there was a press conference with Sheriff Norman, and he provided information to us about the coffee shop investigator, and you have any more information about that, whether or not I think the sheriff has brought that information to the FBI? Vitter said that he was bringing information to the FBI. Any update?
I don't.
Okay. Now, Vitter had actually brought you into that issue. He tried to compare an investigator with a secret camera that at least what the sheriff said was a fake iPhone camera. To your asking Senator Vitter a question during the initial election day, can you, since you were at the press conference, and since
there was a press forum. There's a candidate forum with John Bell Edwards and David Vitter at the Baton Rouge Press Club. It was on the Monday, I think, about 2 weeks before Election Day. They were going to be debating the next night on LPB, and there had been that whole issue of what had happened at the coffee shop. You know, we broke that story at the Advocate, where the young man was secretly recording Sheriff Norman and his coffee group. The Vitter campaign said they were actually really interested in John Cummings, who was a trial lawyer, and then Frenzel, the guy, the private investigator, leaves the coffee shop in a hurry, runs away, and gets arrested while he's hiding behind an air conditioning unit at somebody's yard. And you know, and another issue of the campaign was this whole use of, particularly by the Vitter campaign, not the Vitter campaign, the pro-Vitter super PAC of a guy named Josh Sandifer as a tracker. Sort of, he went to all the, you know, if you went to a public event with Jay Darden, Scott Angel, or John Bell Edwards, you probably saw him, and some of his footage would end up in the Vitter super PAC attack ads. So at this press club, Jim Angster asked Vitter a question about the use of trackers, and Vitter said, well, you know, all sorts of people do different things. And he said, you know, Tyler Bridges is a tracker. On election day, he filmed me while I was talking with my family and the poll watchers. And that was only half true. What happened was I was standing there with two cameramen after Vitter voted at his at the firehouse there. He votes out in Metairie, right next to I-10, and I held out my tape recorder to ask him about it the day before at the coffee shop, and he wouldn't answer my question, but he later said that I was being a tracker because of that.
So there were cameras. I mean, there were cameras actually video him, and he saw those cameras. They were news cameras.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
and he saw you, and you had your microphone, and it was
a mini tape recorder.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your tape recorder, and all that's in plain view.
Oh yes, it's normal.
Yeah,
you know, you interview politicians, and especially if they're walking, you can't take notes. So you hold out your tape recorder. It happens all the time, and so I was a little surprised that he would accuse me of later of tracking him. And as I said, there was even 2 TV cameras that were actually filming him. I wasn't filming him. It was just kind of a rather straightforward thing.
Yeah, a few months before, I had written an article about Josh and the tracking going on, and I personally,
a lot of legal. I remember you raised a lot of legal questions about it. I think most people would agree it's a pretty distasteful aspect of modern politicking. But you actually raised some good questions about how about the stuff that Josh was doing.
And that's not, I mean, tracking was not exactly what was going on in the coffee shop. You know, I mean, Josh is
that's out and out spying. I think those are two different things. And what you wrote about, I think, I think could even fit into kind of a different category. It's one thing to have a public, I think, a candidate, you know, give a speech publicly and have a tracker there filming him as if it was a TV camera. Again, what you wrote about was something different, I think.
Yeah, what I wrote about was this guy Josh with a camera on a pole standing behind people who I believe did not know that their conversation was being recorded as they talked to John Bell Edwards. I'm not saying that Vitter was the only person who did that. In fact, there was a situation in, I think it was Thibodeau, I believe, where somebody who was tracking on behalf of Democratic organization, who actually, I saw the video, and actually came in with David Vitter with a camera shooting Vitter. Vitter saw him, and he opens the door. Vitter's already in and is shooting, you know, the room, shooting Vitter, actually, not anybody else, but shooting Vitter, talking to people. And the Vitter campaign was trying to use that and say that was identical to what happened in a coffee shop. You know, so
yeah, well, it was a race that ended up with prostitution, spies, trackers, the Syrian refugees, terrorists. It reminds me of that 1991 race. Steve, back then you were a lawyer, not doing so much journalism, but you were also very active in the anti-Duke group. Yeah. And I was covering that race for the Times-Picayune, but just this race reminded me of that race.